Hello and welcome to this special show on Gundappa Vishwanath. Easily one of India's finest and most loved cricketers, he doesn't seem to be celebrated as much as he deserves to be. So I invited R. Mohan, my friend, who's now resident editor of the Deccan Chronicle in Chennai, but who has covered a lot of cricket for the Hindu and Sports Star. I also asked my friend Vijay Lokapally to be on this special show because he's done a lot of interviews and has interacted with Gundappa Vishwanath over a number of years for the Hindu and for Sports Star. Vincent Sunder is another friend of mine who has watched Gundappa Vishwanath from 1964. This was way before he became a test star in 1969. Vincent has had the pleasure of meeting Vishwanath several times in the last few years and has forged a very strong friendship with him. Last but not the least, I asked my friend Hemant Kenkre, who's the brother-in-law of Gundappa Vishwanath, to join the show so that he can bring in a different perspective. I also recorded Mohammed Azharuddin, a former India captain and a risky batsman himself, as well as Aunshuman Gaekwad, one of Vishwanath's contemporaries, a fine batsman and a coach in later years. My friends and I are trying to recapture the aura that Gundappa Vishwanath exuded on the cricket field and beyond. I began by asking R. Mohan, when was the first time he met Gundappa Vishwanath?
Vishy was one of those who probably I met very early in my life. And I said hi, and we got talking, and instantly charming, instantly friendly. He was that kind of a guy, and we sort of worshipped him, always called him Maestro, and he responded to that. He expected you to call him Maestro because we had started that tradition long ago. And the best thing I would like to say about Vishy is I don't think there is one mean bone in his body. He's an amazing person. I mean, you really can't imagine a sportsman of his caliber and his accomplishments could have such a heart, such a golden heart. No malice in any bone in his body. That's difficult when you go through a career. Especially a sport like cricket with so many chances, a capricious game. You tend to pick up a few things. You get into some tips, some fights with others, etc. But never Vishy. Not in his life have I heard him say anything snide about anybody else. Of course, as friends, we shared a lot of confidences. So in very, very private, hushed tones, over a drink at some bar late evening in Australia, he would tell me a few things about Indian cricket, about his mates and things. But that is never for public consumption, and he knew it, and I knew it. I would never, betray those confidences. But this is an amazing person. You just can't believe a sportsman could be that good-hearted. And I was doing my first trip of Australia in 1980, and we used to meet in the breakfast room, and an omelette would cost $7 Australian, frightening kind of money in those days because it was about $70 an omelette, and he would pay for mine. I would say, Vichy, please don't do that because I get an allowance from the Hindu. I'm getting $100 a day. I can afford to pay for my omelette. No, he would say, no, you can't pay when you're my guest at breakfast, and you would pay for the omelette. And then we went on from Perth to some other city. I think it was Melbourne. We were in Melbourne, and he said, Mohan, what the hell are you doing in the team hotel? Why are you staying in this hotel and paying all those dollars, $35, $40 a day? I said, I enjoy it. I have you guys for company and all that. He said, no. My friend from Fiji is coming today, Harry. You will meet him, and he'll take you home. So Harry came. He took me to his house so that I could save a few days rent. Vishy was like that. Vishy was an absolute gentleman, so caring. He was a great friend to have, really.
Let me turn to Azharuddin now.
भाई फर्स्ट टाइम इनको देखा थी कि 74-75 में देखा था, क्योंकि जो मैच था जो वेस्ट इंडीज वर्सेस, वो मेरा सब में बड़ा बिग मैच था. ऐसे किड मैं क्या 10 साल का 11 साल का था, तो वो मैच में विशी भाई ने 100 किया था, क्योंकि जब उन्होंने खेल रहे थे तो ज्यादातर बॉल इधर आ रहा था. जब स्क्वायर कट ज्यादा मारते थे ना तो स्क्वायर की तरफ ही आता था, क्योंकि मैं बीच में बैठा था. पहले हैदराबाद में ₹1 में आप स्टार्टिंग में ₹1 दिए तो स्टार्टिंग का टिकट मिलता था. स्टार्टिंग इसलिए राइट साइड में रहता था, ईस्टर्न स्टैंड बोलते थे. स्टार्टिंग ₹1 ₹1.5 का टिकट था एक दिन का, तो उसमें टिकट में बैठे जब देखा था, फर्स्ट टाइम उनको देखा था. फिर बाद में तो बहुत, फिर तो जब बैटिंग जब भी देखा मैं, फिर 78 में जब वेस्ट इंडीज टीम में, 74 में तो जब टीवी नहीं था, और 78 में फिर भी थोड़ा बहुत टीवी आ गया था, तो टीवी पे थोड़ा बहुत देखे. वहाँ पे भी मेरा 100 किए थे लोग, ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ 79 में किए थे. बट मेरे को ज्यादातर याद है 83 सीरीज का पाकिस्तान में अंतर था, थोड़ा सा सीरीज अच्छी नहीं थी, बट इतना डिसअपॉइंटेड था कि मैं कि वो एक ही क्रिकेटर है जो कमबैक मेरे ख्याल में होने नहीं दिया, पता नहीं ही डिजर्व्ड ए कमबैक। बिकॉज ओके ठीक है, सोचते ने आई मीन हर एक सीरीज में नहीं करने से इतने बड़े प्लेयर इतना खराब नहीं है।
Vijay, what is your first memory of Gundappa Vishwanath?
Yeah, that was 1969, the Test match at Delhi, and I mean, I don't know if I told you, my mother, she gifted me a season ticket for the Test match, and the main attraction was there was no Gavaskar then; he was to come 2 years later, and we all wanted to see this batsman who we had only heard and read. Those days there was no television, so going to the Kotla Mohan, believe me, 6 o'clock I stood there in the queue 3 hours before the gates opened, only to catch a glimpse of Gundappa Vishwanath. And then I was sitting with some of these club cricketers in the general stands. Then somebody said, "ये रे इतना छोटा height है, ये क्या cricketer है? You can't even see him from a distance." And then when he came to bat, you discovered there was something called class. There's something called.
Having heard Vijay, can we now move on to Aunshuman Gaekwad and listen to what he has had to say?
This was basically when I played Mohan in Hyderabad. I was captaining Wazir Sultan, VST, and Vishy was captaining State Bank. So after the match, that in Hyderabad there is only one big room, dressing room, and there was a partition. So after the match, he just walked up to me. I was awed because I was kept watching him as GR Viswanath, and he walked up to me and said, "What are you doing in the evening?" And I was shell shocked. I said, "Such a big cricketer asking me," and I had not known him, neither nothing whatsoever. That was the first time. He just walked away and come to my hotel, and I did. I did go to his hotel in the evening, and there I saw Vishy walking around in the towel, getting ready for a bath at 7:00, 7:15 in the evening. And he asked me, "Sit down, will you have a beer?" I said, "No, sir. I drink," though I was. But I didn't have the guts to tell him that I'll have beer in front of him. I had so much of respect for him. And then he forced me, and you won't believe I was sitting on the edge of the chair all the time, drinking, sipping beer and talking to him. But he was such a down to earth, and he gave me so much of confidence and a sort of comfort that I started talking very normally, naturally, and he also was joking and laughing. It made me feel at home, and that's where it all started. And it never till date we never looked back.
We heard what Anshuman Gaekwad had to say. Let me now turn around to Vincent and ask him what his first memories of Gundappa Vishwanath are.
Then got into State Bank of India. Those used to be royal times for us because there are many great teams which used to participate in the league season. There were several teams with to manage those clubs. But Vishwanath stood out for us for the manner in which he played the game. There were very big names. There was Dr. Chandrasekhar who ran Crescents. There was Jawahar's Cricket Club. State Bank of India also had several stars. But this one man stood out. And the biggest memory was when Vishwanath finally made his debut. It was a Saturday and we had got off to a very good start that morning. And it was in the afternoon when our own cricket game was happening. And the moment Vishy came into bat, the announcement was made, the game was stopped. We all assembled around the transistor. A few minutes, no run scored yet, and then the commentator's voice went up. We couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe that our hero had failed without scoring a run. The game stopped, there was a deathly silence, and then we went back. But on the penultimate day, when we rushed back from school, which is around 3:30, our great man was batting. He was approaching a 50. We were glued to the transistor. 50, he ended up at 69. So we had to miss his 100 the next day, but we came again rushing. And then there was joy, behold, because it felt as if we had succeeded at that stage. If there was a deathly silence on the first day when he had failed, and we felt that we had let ourselves down, on the day when that 100 was made, it was pure joy. We celebrated. I think it was, as a cricket fan, it was much bigger than perhaps even winning World Cups for the cricket.
Beautiful. Thank you, Vinci. Can I now ask Hemant Kenkre, very special, he shares a special bond with Gundappa Vishwanath. Hemant is a bundle of stories himself, and I'm sure he's going to come up with something. But you have to start with telling us when you first heard of Vishwanath and when you first met him.
Well, so let me start with the first time I heard of GR Viswanath was when I was actually traveling, in a steamer from Bombay to my maternal hometown, which is Vengurla, and my mama, my maternal uncle, whose name was Baban Dwarkanath Gavaskar, who used to be a club cricketer who had played with Vinu Mankad. And there was nothing to do in the steamer, and the commentary used to be on, as in people, used to have their little transistor radios. And obviously the India-Australia game was going on at that point in time. And Baban Mama, was wow, he sort of shouted. And, we asked him what happened. And he said, GR Viswanath has scored 100. I mean, that's the first time I heard the name GR Viswanath. And Baban Mama, being a cricketer, a decent, a pretty good cricketer at the club level, had played a bit of cricket in, in Mangalore and, because he used to live in very close to Goa, which is also very close to Karnataka. So he was very familiar with Vishwanath, and he kept on sort of waxing eloquent about it. But I think a more interesting introduction of GR Viswanath happened maybe just a few months later, maybe 69, 70, when the Shivaji Park Gymkhana, the famous Shivaji Park Gymkhana, which used to was the home of many former Bombay and India cricketers like Vijay Manjrekar, Ajit Wadekar, etc., had a double or a single wicket tournament. And my elder cousin, Sunil Gavaskar, was also playing that tournament. I mean, he probably had just made his debut for Bombay, but he obviously did not play for India at that point in time. And so as a little child, I used to always irritate him, take me for the game, etc. So he, had taken me for that game at the Shivaji Park Gymkhana. And I mean, the game is a big blur, a lot of crowds, a lot of people, a lot of big stars like M.L. Jaisimha, Chandrasekhar, a lot of people. And when we were walking back from Shivaji Park Gymkhana to his house, which in those days was pretty close, it's not very far, about a 15-20 minute walk. And he was waxing eloquent about this batsman called GR Viswanath. And I'm talking about Sunil Gavaskar. And he was saying, he was just talking to his friends, a lot of people were walking together. What a player. That's when, that sort of, and all of us, I mean, I looked at Sunil as a hero, even much before he had played test cricket for India. So, I mean, my elder brother and my mama, both cricketers, talking about this GR Viswanath, obviously, that was something. But when I saw him for the first time, very briefly, when the Indian team was practicing just before the 71 tour of the West Indies, and the practice happened to be at the Brabant Stadium, and I saw him at a distance. But I saw that the second 100 of his, the hoodoo breaking 100, as they call it, at the Brabant Stadium, where he scored 113, 114 against Tony Lewis's team, coming in at number 6 after Farooq Engineer had already got 100. Wadekar had scored a mammoth 80 odd, and he and Salim Durrani had a big partnership. And that's where I saw him for the first time. And the only one memory I remember of GR Viswanath is not his famous square cut, or that, as Mohan Saab rightly said, the flick of his wrist, or was it Vijay Lokapally? Sorry, the flick of his body. It was a sixer he hit of Chris Old, and it was one of those, just one of those contact sixes, just happens, bang, and the ball. I remember we were at the West Stand, going all the way across to where the swimming pool is at the CCI, and that was the earliest memory. And soon later, the perennial, what shall I say, entertainer, a crowd favorite, Tony Gregg, picked up Vishy in his arms like a little child, and he cradled him around, and the entire crowd, including all of us, little kids, going, "Wow, what's happening?" So that was GR Viswanath's first introduction. Of course, after that, had the pleasure and the honor of seeing him play and get lots of 100 against lots of great opposition. But to me, I think, GR Viswanath came to me from the right of those days, from the Gavaskar household, and not from anybody else.
Right. Thank you, Hemant. Let me get back to you, Mohan. you must have interacted with him on the tours that you went from Australia, and I'm sure you were in Pakistan as well, which was his farewell series, and you would have covered a lot of cricket. What is that one greatest quality? Everyone says humility, but what is that one greatest quality of Vishwanath that you remember very fondly?
No, let me tell you. I think the very first innings I saw Vishwanath play was for South Zone against North Zone at Chepauk Stadium, and the way he would defend Bedi, that sort of characterizes a great player. The kind of defense he had, he just tap the ball down, and I promise you, it won't rise even half a centimeter in the air. To go off the bat, straight onto the ground, and roll on, and there would be three fielders even on the onside, waiting for that, little bit of thing to pop, but nothing. That kind of defense I've seen only in very, very great players like Sunil Gavaskar again of that time and Vishy. The ball wouldn't rise an inch. If they wanted to defend the ball, it stayed put. There is no danger. Nobody, and you could have 8 fielders around the bat, and nobody would even have half a chance of taking that catch off that. So that was the kind of, the rock safety on which their cricket was founded. And if you didn't have that defense in those days, you couldn't exist. It's a different world today where you have one-day cricket where you can throw your bat around. It didn't matter if you snicked it, if you uppercut it for 6, it didn't matter. People are still applauding it. But in those days, no, you had to have a rock solid defense in order to be able to play Test cricket, because there was only Test cricket then. When Vishy started his career, it was just Test cricket. And then the first Test match in which I saw Vishy play was in 1969 against Australia at the Eden Gardens, even before the Madras Test. At the Eden Gardens, I saw him play on a very, very, very wintry December in Calcutta. The way he played Graham McKenzie was just amazing. The way he square drove him, the way he would tap down his bouncers, even in defense, he would tap down a Graham McKenzie's bouncer as if, it was the simplest thing in the world to do. So again, I'm talking about his defense even more than his strokes. But then once you don't have the defense, you can't have the kind of strokes that people like Vishy play. And the kind of command he had over the offside, the square drive, the late cover drive, the almost late cutting, behind point, those kind of strokes, people with iron wrists who could play the ball that way. And as Vijay said correctly about the way he could flick the ball to the onside with the same wrists of steel. So these are what you remember him for: his great defense and the kind of artistic strokes he played.
This was basically when I played Mohan Azharuddin in Hyderabad. I was captaining Wazir Sultan, VST, and Vishy was captaining State Bank. So after the match, that in Hyderabad there is only one big room, dressing room, and there was a partition. So after the match, he just walked up to me. I was awed because I was kept watching him as GR Viswanath, and he walked up to me and said, "What are you doing in the evening?" And I was shell shocked. I said, "Such a big cricketer asking me," and I had not known him. Neither, nothing whatsoever. That was the first time. He just walked away and come to my hotel, and I did. I did go to his hotel in the evening, and there I saw Vishy walking around in the towel, getting ready for a bath at 7:00, 7:15 in the evening. And he asked me, "Sit down. Will you have a beer?" I said, "No, sir. I drink," though I was. But I didn't have the guts to tell him that I'll have beer in front of him. Because I had so much of respect for him. And then he forced me, and you won't believe I was sitting on the edge of the chair all the time, drinking, sipping beer and talking to him. But he was such a down-to-earth, and he gave me so much of confidence and, a sort of comfort that I started talking very normally, naturally. And he also was joking and laughing. It made me feel at home. And that's where it all started. And it never, till date, we never looked back.
What is that one endearing quality that makes GR such a loved batsman, such a loved human being for you?
Yeah, human being, yes. But like Mohan just now said, how many batsmen would you remember for their defense? I mean, he would block the ball, it won't go beyond the square. So that was amazing skill. I think Mohan, that was there during batsmen of that era. Probably today, obviously they don't know that kind of batting, but uh, meeting Vishwanath was always such a pleasure because he would make you feel important. He would. I remember the first time I met him outside the ground. Mohan may not remember. He only had set it up. I had to go and meet him at the Lodi Hotel in Delhi for an interview. Mohan had spoken to him. He told me go so and so room. I went and he called me, and there he was wrapped up in just a towel. He just allowed me in, and he settled. He went off for a bath, came back and gave me a superb interview. Again, thanks, because Mohan and I'll remember. I can never forget that. Sitting in a room with Gundappa Vishwanath. So that was such a privilege, and yeah, humility, yes, and also the fact that he made you feel important, and he would never talk about his batting. That was, you ask him, how did you get that 100? Oh, it just happened. Like Mohan, like Kapil Dev would say, you ask him, how did you get that 175? He'll say, oh, it just happened. It couldn't have just happened. There would have been some effort behind it. So I think I'll remember Vishwanath for his humility, and also the fact that he would always accommodate our requests. Essentially, one, yes, because he knew that I was working with the Hindu, so that was a huge advantage. But meeting him was it was an education, honestly, in life.
वेस्ट इंडीज टूर पे भी उनको लेके नहीं गया था 83 में, तो उस टाइम में मेरे को 83 में मौका मिला था कि विशी भाई के साथ, जब स्टेट बैंक में था, मैं था, अशोक माधव था, पूरे अशोक की पास सब जने थे, तो उस दिन वो मौका मिला था, तो हम मैच खेल रहे थे वहाँ पे स्टेट बैंक वर्सेस मद्रास। वेंकटरामन कैप्टन थे, श्रीराम कृष्णन, शेखर सब जने थे, भरत कुमार लोग थे। तो मैच में मैं और अशोक की पास कर रहे थे, तो मैच में 173 किया था, तो 5-10 वाले भी बहुत किए थे। मैं 173 किया था, अशोक की पास 150 के ऊपर किए थे। हम दोनों की पार्टनरशिप थी, जब मेरे ख्याल में फर्स्ट लीड पे मैच जीते थे, क्योंकि सेकंड इनिंग हो ही नहीं सकी, क्योंकि 3 डे मैच था, बुच्ची बाबू मैच था। तो जब आके मेरे दोनों कल्लों पे ऐसा हाथ लगा के, दोनों ऐसा कल्लों पे हाथ लगा के मार के बोले, वी वन द मैच बिकॉज ऑफ वी वन दिस मैच बिकॉज ऑफ यू, बोल के बोले, क्योंकि हमको फर्स्ट इनिंग लीड मिल गई थी। अल्लाह भी कुछ 400-500 मारे थे, हम लोग भी 500 मारे थे। तो मैं यहाँ तक कि याद है 170, 120, 130 बॉल्स में कर दिया था मैं। मतलब कि वो टाइम फर्स्ट मीटिंग थी मेरी उसी वजह से, और इतना अच्छे थे ना, मुझको ऐसा लगता था कि इतने बड़े प्लेयर थे, बट कभी भी दूसरे प्लेयर से जब टूटे जाके मिलने का थोड़ा सा डर लगता था, बट शिवन के साथ अच्छा मिलता था, अच्छा रैपो बन गया। फिर बाद में हैदराबाद में भी आए थे, हैदराबाद में मैच खेला, तो वहाँ पे भी 60 या 64 मारा था मैं रणजी ट्रॉफी में। भाई कैप्टन थे, जब भी बोले वेल प्लेड बोले आके, मतलब अपोजिंग कैप्टन थे बट वेल प्लेड बोले थे, तो मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई, क्योंकि उनके साथ कभी भी मैं अच्छे नहीं, क्योंकि हम दोनों एक ही, मैं भी एक उनका जो मिलता था तो एकदम बिल्कुल बहुत रेस्पेक्टफुली मिलता था, तो उनको बहुत अच्छा लगता था, क्योंकि वो मैं भी मेरे बहुत बड़े प्लेयर हम लोगों को देख के बड़े हुए, और मुझे एक रिग्रेट वही है कि मेरे साथ वो टेस्ट मैच खेलने सके, एक बड़ा रिग्रेट है। शायद में अगर एक भी टेस्ट मैच अगर मेरे साथ अगर जब वो खेले थे, तो शायद मैं एक बोलता था कि अरे भाई मैंने भी ऋषि भाई के साथ टेस्ट मैच खेला, बट
Vincent, I know you once talked to me about meeting him in the company of Tamil Nadu Suresh Kumar. Would you like to take us through what happened in that meeting and how that meeting itself happened?
Yes, Raja. In fact, my good friend C.S. Suresh Kumar, I owe a lot to him. He was the one who gave me a message and said, "Come over. Vishy is going to come and join me." So, of course, I dropped everything, ran, knocked on the room, and there was the great man. I mean, he had been a person we had seen from afar, social distancing. That's how we looked up to our stars in those days. We kept a respectable distance even at the games. We wouldn't go too close unless it was to get an autograph. Come back. We never used to invade their privacy. I mean, there was a lot of respect for many of the big cricketers who used to play in those league games at ordinary grounds. There was no security, nothing. The way my idol related, as if he knew me all along, checking what I would like to have, and then the discussion went on. They were talking about cricket. It was that time when the mystery spinner in Sri Lanka, Ajanta Mendes, was causing trouble. So when I quietly asked him, sir, you would have played him? He said, me, I could never play straight. Absolutely humble, very simple, no airs. And what I had noticed was that it is genuine. Coming from GRV, it is very genuine. It's not that he's being nice to you. That is the person that defines him. There are two incidents which I would like to share. One, when we were sitting in KSA and he was having his favorite snack, which is chaat. Suddenly we heard a loud voice, oh, Vishy sir. There were about 3 of us at the table and about 6.5 feet, huge man. He came there, sir, I have come from Delhi. I am your great fan. Oh, it is such a pleasure. I am here with my family. Sir, can I take a photograph with you? Sure enough, Vishy put the plate, stood up, which is one thing I had noticed even in the earlier experiences. He was a person, even if a child went to him or a young kid went to him, he would always stand up, shake hands, and provide an autograph. Very rare quality, but I've never ever seen him sitting and wishing somebody. So here came this huge man, and then everything was done. Then he looked at him and said, sir, whenever you used to get out, I would never eat, sir. That's when the classical instant humor of Vishy came up. He looked him up and down and said, in those days, you must have been very thin. So the moment that got over, he said, sir, please wait. I'll get my family and bring them. Okay, we are getting a little impatient because it's taken a few minutes. His family comes, he makes the introductions. The man spent about 5 minutes, absolutely unhurried, spoke to them well. Again, photograph sessions, everything over. He was completely unruffled the way he used to play his cricket. He came, sat down, smiled, shrugged, and then it continued. The next was an even more interesting incident which gave me another to him. There were 3 of us sitting at a table when his son, this is about 15 years back, he came rushing in, said something to Vishy, and then started going away. He said, stop, come here. Then he pointed to the other gentleman at the table. You know Shankar uncle? He nodded, yes. Did you have the manners to wish him when you came to the table? Now, we were taken aback because he was reprimanding his son. So immediately the son, of course, wished Shankar and then he left. And we said, sir, it's okay. It's a small kid. He said, no. Manners has to be learnt. If people are going out of line, you need to correct. 2 small incidents, but it showed there is genuine warmth. There is remembrance. I think he's got a phenomenal memory. He remembers, small things. Like just before we got on this call, I was having a call with W.V. Raman, and he was sharing an anecdote. He said he met him after Vishy came back from the West Indies, and he said, sir, how are the wickets? Must have been challenged. Nothing like that. Flat, was almost like a mirror. I could see my face in it and comb my hair. Nothing great. So overall, if you look at that person, it's a very genuine person, a very humble person, a person who tells you what comes from his heart. And for a stature of that person, from the humble beginnings in which he came, to have played cricket at the highest level and with success, and to have been a selector, to have been a match referee, so on and so forth, he still greets people. He has time for people. It's amazing. You've seen lesser people get irritated with things, not with Vishy sir. He is always composed, loves people, and does nothing. I'll just close this with one more incident. Again, it brought the humor. We were leaving a book launch. We had finished our lunch. Manuja's car was supposed to take him and drop him home. 2 people came running. Photo. Immediately obliged. And then one chap stepped back. He wanted to take a full-length picture. So he said, Purana. So immediately sir quips, Kya? Main Purana? That's his humor. It's wonderful. Every meeting is to be cherished. I'm very fortunate for having seen him right from those young days when he was playing in the 4th division game till where he is today. And it's so warm. His story has to be told. If I have one regret, his story has not yet been told. I hope Cricketing Legacy will see a book, a good book, which will add value to his existence and what he has brought.
Thank you very much, Vinci. I can see a lot of passion in what you just said. Hemant, let me get to you. What is this all about? What is the kind of bond that you share with Gundappa Vishwanatha? It seems almost magical because there doesn't seem to be any formality between the two.
I mean, what shall I say? I mean, from a cricketing perspective, Mohan Saab, Vijay Bhai, and obviously Vincent have said everything about, and the other important element that came out, which is so GR Viswanath, is humility, respecting elders. I mean, I've seen it actually happening. I mean, I can only, when you talk about from a family perspective, or rather, not really that because I was family or we were family. It's very different ballgame. When my father used to go to Bangalore in the mid or late 70s, because my younger brother wanted admission into a medical college in Manipal, and Bangalore obviously was the sort of headquarters, and he had to keep on going there. And Vishy and Kavita, of course, both of them used to sort of be very insistent that they stay with him, and sort of they could do whatever they wanted. And this is, Vishy also went maybe once or twice went to the airport to pick up my father. And Vishy at that point in time was at the height of his fame. We are talking about 78, 79. I mean, that was the time when Vishy was like, I mean, he's still rocking and rolling, but that time he was rocking and rolling as a current cricketer, and his fame was just unparalleled. So that was one. Even the last time that my mother met him, I remember when both Sunil and Vishy were felicitated on their 60th birthday, in Bombay in 2009 or 10. And my mother was very frail and very weak. And when Vishy saw her walking in, he got up from almost a distance away, walked up and held her hand and sort of touched her feet. That is GR Viswanath. I mean,
you realize you're a die-hard fan only when your hero gets excluded from a team. And I was surely gutted when Vishy was dropped after the 1982-83 series in Pakistan. And if you ask Balwinder Singh Sandhu, the player who was part of that series, he'll tell you that it was Imran Khan who is responsible for Vishy's exit with his ball tampering tactics. I had read all along that Vishy was the nicest bloke going around, and I was happy to experience that through some of the interactions we've had over the years, starting from the time he became chairman of selectors in the 1990s. I remember Hemant Kenkre writing a piece in which he said that Vishy was once woken up by a journalist at night who wanted to know whether the panel will select Kapil Dev in the team. And Vishy must have said something to the journalist, but he was not. And Hemant wanted to know why he'd, tolerate all this nonsense. And Vishy just told Hemant, the journalist was just doing his job. That probably sums up Vishy as a person. I can say that I have been a beneficiary of his cordial ways, welcoming ways, and I'm glad that I've met a person like Vishy.
I mean, the phone rang and I picked up the phone and I said, "Hello, who's speaking?" He said, "Can I please speak to Mr. GR Viswanath?" So I said, "Who's speaking?" And he said, "I'm a journalist from, not from Bangalore, from another state." And he said, "I need to talk to Viswanath because tomorrow apparently there's a selection committee meeting happening in Calcutta and Mr. Viswanath is supposed to be going there." And so I told Vishy, I said, "There's a journalist." So he picked up the phone immediately. At 12 o'clock in the morning, an extremely polite Viswanath talking to this journalist kept on saying only one thing. I could only hear one part of the conversation because I was sitting there. And he kept on saying, "Oh, no, I will tell you tomorrow. Oh, you have to wait for the selection committee meeting to be over. Oh, no, I will only tell you tomorrow." And he kept the phone down. And I asked Vishy, I said, "What happened?" He said, "No, this guy wanted to know, whether we are going to select X, Y, Z, or whether Kapil Dev is going to make the Indian team or not." There was some kind of controversy going on in those days, towards the end of Kapil Dev's career. And I said, "Vishy, how can you tolerate this? Yeah, this is 12 o'clock in the morning. This guy's calling on your landline. Normally, when a landline rings at 12 o'clock in the morning, it only means one thing, and you know what it is. It's never good news." So he said, Dad, it's his job. He's a journalist. He's doing his job. Please understand that. I mean, look at the kind of maturity the man had. Anybody else, believe me, including myself, anybody would get extremely irritated if somebody called you for work at 12 o'clock in the night, when it could have well waited till the next day. But that's GR Viswanath. I mean, that's what he's all about. And there's so many stories about him, sort of never ever, what shall I say, look down upon people, always very accommodating. And Vincent, and this is the problem when you're batting number number 7. All the good things are spoken about. But I completely endorse what Vincent said, what Vijay said, and also what Mohan said. I mean, humility, sense of humor. Oh my God, this is brilliant. I still remember. He was LBW bowled, I'm not sure, old memory, against Clive Lloyd's team, the first test match at Wankhede Stadium. And, the Doordarshan camera, walked up, the cameraman and the interviewer walked up to Vishy, and I was standing next to him. And they asked him this question. I said, Vishy, well played, etc., etc., etc. And then he asked him one simple question, saying that, that ball that Van Older bowled, was it an in-swinger or was it an out-swinger? And Vishy, being Vishy, looked at him deadpan and said, if I knew, I'd still be batting. So, his sense of humor, his making people feel at ease, never make anybody feel, never condescending or never patronizing, always a friend. I mean, whether you're a fan, whether you knew him or whether you didn't know him. That was what GR Viswanath, as a cricketer and as human being, still is. I mean, the other day when we went to W.V. Raman's opening book launch, and he came a little late, and Vincent would probably remember, he sat at the back and kept on poking me from the back, and everybody there, nobody knew me. So everybody was wondering, who's this man he's poking? This is GR Viswanath. He's not sort of somebody, who will, want to be, sort of, what shall I say, hoo-ha, wow, you're great, this, that. He's simple. He was always simple, and that's the endearing quality which we all love him for.
He appreciated cricket. He had a good word for opponents. He never saw the need to sledge them. It was a gentleman's game, and Vishy was the real gentleman playing this gentleman's game. So and he was an easygoing soul, really. See, it's different. Apart from his cricket and the evenings, whatever he enjoyed, he didn't have many great interests except in Hindi music and a few things like that. So he was a very easygoing lad. In fact, as Vincent was saying there about nobody having written a book on Vishy, I think I am to blame, because I think this was in 1980 when office gave me time off to go to Bangalore. In fact, even gave me the guest house to stay. And Vishy and Kavita would come every day, and we would sit and talk for 5-6 hours and tape the whole thing. Unfortunately, those were typewriter days. So the same night I would sit and type a chapter. So we got through about 3 or 4 chapters. And then, of course, Kavita was probably there to make sure that Vishy was on his best behavior. But we would somehow plot to get away from her, send her home. And Vishy and I would quietly meet in KSCS or somewhere down the road, have a nip, and then come back again and still do the job. But somehow, he was so easygoing, and I was another guy, probably like him. So the book sort of stopped a quarter way, I would say. So even if it was halfway, then it would have been easy to get it restarted and finish it. But we probably did 3 or 4 chapters. And being typewriter days, I've lost even that bit of a manuscript somewhere as we moved home or something. So it's all gone now. So there's never going to be a real Vishy book, a book by Viswanath himself may never appear. But I'm sure somebody who has seen so much of cricket would love to write on him. And these are the qualities, that you saw in him, that he was a sportsman. He loved the game. It didn't matter to him whether it was an opponent who played well or it was his teammate who played well. Or in fact, if he saw youngsters play well, he would be right there encouraging them. And when he played for State Bank, he would be conversing with all the youngsters. I've seen him do that. Bring all the youngsters together, have a chat, and he would keep this one great saying of his was, he would say that you guys are all there but not there. So he would always tell them that the idea is to get there, to get to the top, and he would encourage them in every possible way, with his words and things. So Vishy was a real cricketer at heart. He was a heart of gold, a man with a heart of gold and a cricketer at heart. So you could see all those gentlemanly qualities in him. And of course, he was not a great one for deep technical analysis and things like that. I would ask him how he could play spinners so well, and he says, I used to read the rotation on the ball. That from the way the ball rotated, I could make out whether it was off break, leg break, or it was a googly or whatever. So he had that instinct built in him that he could read the ball and decide what to do about it. So that was one great quality. And another thing is he wasn't very, very great on details. In fact, there's the Ranji Trophy final going on. I think it was 1981, I think, the famous game at the Kotla. It went on and on. The second tea time on the second day, the people came rushing the North Zone team, asking why Vishy wasn't declaring. because just before tea, I had taken a copy of Indian cricket. I went to him, sat with him, and told him there was a rule saying that the Ranji Trophy final is timeless, that it has to be played on until the first innings lead is established. There was no question of his declaring the innings. He didn't know the law. But then he was not a guy who would mistake you for coming and telling him that, boss, this is the law, so you got to bat on. So that is the match in which Karnataka went on to score 703, and Delhi still passed them on the sixth day, I think, sixth morning. So they were all one tired set of cricketers. And that after tea, the entire North Zone, the entire Delhi team kept on cursing me for having told Vishy about the law. Otherwise they would have declared a tea and they would have been batting, which he did. I mean, he went on to bat into the third day before they were all out for 700 odd. So he was like that. He wasn't great on detail. It didn't matter to him. It was just a game, and he had to. He was this great batsman with an inbuilt gift to play. So as I said, he wasn't unduly great on technical analysis of the game. He just played it. And you asked him about any cricketer, would say, yeah, he was very good. He would explain how good a cricketer was, but he wouldn't never get into great detail about it. So I think, in a sense, I saw in him a cricket lover more than even a cricket analyst or so.
Thank you, Mohan. Vijay, what are your own impressions? You have interviewed him several times, including get him to speak about that 137 of his, which he was always reluctant to talk about. How did you manage a few things? Tell us a little bit about your interaction and how things would go with Viswanath. How easy it was to sit with someone and have a conversation around cricket. Because I know he grew up listening to the M.L. Jayasimas and the Tiger Pataudis, the V. Subramanyas and the Erapalli Prasannas of the world. He kind of graduated from there, and he took on a statesman position many years later. But you share what you know of Gundappa Viswanath, especially when you are asking him questions. And Mohan just said that he's not great on detail. What has been your own experience, Vijay?
You're absolutely right. You know what Mohan said, not good on details, because if you could tell him, are you sure? I mean, he himself wasn't sure, but he wanted to find out from me if I was sure, because if he could go on. But here, Mohan, I would also share with you, a few months ago, our colleague Rakesh Rao, he had never met Gundappa. So he said, is it possible to meet him? So I said, yes. So we flew to Bombay and we spent a day with GRV at the Star Sports studio, where you won't believe, Rakesh came prepared with his list of hundreds, and he made Vishwanath go through those hundreds, recollecting each innings, and he remembered them like the back of his hand. The stroke which got him the 100, just like Sachin Tendulkar does. Today he'll tell you each 100, he'll tell you how he reached that 100. The bowler, he can tell you the field also, So it was always a pleasure, and a learning process plus anecdotes. He, like I said, he would love to talk about others. So you got to know more about others from GRV than about himself. For him, you would have to go back to reports of good old times, speak to his contemporaries. And for me, a couple of, like I said, from Kanpur, he said, Vijay, but I don't remember much about the 137. I said, sir, it's not possible. And you have to talk about it because I'm at Kanpur and I'm under pressure. But for me, the password was the Hindu, I have a very fond memory of which I had written last month, Mohan, that I traveled on a bicycle to watch his innings at Mohan Nagar and I used to stay in Andhra Bhavan. From there, really some 35 kilometers. I didn't have money to buy a ticket for the bus, so I and my friend, we shared the ride. We only to watch Gundappa Viswanath. That was a Ranji Trophy final where he got a double 100 against UP. And never got to meet him, never got to speak to him, but just watching him from a distance and understanding the game from a layman's perspective, and then from his own, we would make him sit, and we would love to hear about his batting, but he would quickly go on to his partner, who would have done well. And there are so many stories to share, But yes, again, this trip happened because Armon recommended my name to be sent to Nairobi. And there was this tournament where there was a party where we were told, we were invited, and we were told that one of the main attractions of the party was to be Mumtaz, that heroine, film heroine from Hindi film industry. So I went not because of Mumtaz, because GRV confirmed. He told me, yes, I'll be there. So I went, and I spent the whole evening, Mohan, with GRV standing. We sat near the swimming pool, and then I just mustered up the courage to ask him, sir, how did you play those square cuts? He just showed me his wrist, see this, feel it. And I felt, then I could realize, it was, yes, it was strong, supple also, yes, because he could play the late cut and the square cut. But meeting GRV was always, you looked forward to meeting him, whether he was a selector, whether you would run into him at a cricket ground, or at some cricket gathering, he would be there. And the best thing, Mohan, is that if he even today, he's one of the very, very few cricketers who returns the call. There would be a time when he may not be able to pick the call, but he always has this courtesy to call back. So for such a great sportsman, he's very, very humble, and in my list, he's among the top three sportsmen I've met in my life.
Thank you, Vijay. I get to Hemant now. Hemant, one of the best qualities that you perhaps will agree with me is loyalty. I remember reading Gundappa Vishwanath saying no to several banks, banks and other corporates which approached him, giving him a job. He'd already committed to State Bank of India, and he said, one job for all my life. He stuck with State Bank for all his working life, and then even though he had not been picked for the 1983 Indian team tour of the West Indies, and subsequently when the West Indies came and played here, he kind of lost the belief that he would be picked back again. He spent time with the Karnataka team. I think till 87, 88, he did play Ranji Trophy. He guided some youngsters. He molded the Karnataka team that was churning at that point of time. And this is the kind of loyalty that makes him really special, doesn't it?
I think it was inherent in that particular generation, and he was one of those who obviously played the game the way it was supposed to be played. For example, the famous Bob Taylor incident in Bombay, in the Jubilee Test in Bombay, we all remember that. I mean, what would it have taken for him to just look the other way? I mean, nobody would have bothered, but he sort of played the game the way that the game was supposed to be played. And there are many incidents of Vishy encouraging people that I've seen. He was a big fan of T. Srinivasan, I remember, who passed away, the late Tamil Nadu middle order batsman. And I remember one particular game, he called me and said, let's go and watch. There's a Tamil Nadu versus Bombay game going on, and T is going to play. So, we went across to the Wankhede Stadium. Unfortunately, T had, got out just before we walked in. And, he, looked around and said, T out, and he walked back, So, he was very fond of certain people, for example. T was a big fan of his. And a lot of small incidents. Like, for example, I was with him physically in 1974 when 74-75, New Year's Eve, if I remember correctly, when he scored that magnificent 139 against Clive Lloyd's West Indians, and when the Indian team under Tiger Pataudi made a comeback. And then, of course, that was followed by the 97 not out in Chennai. So, I mean, I was there and I saw the way that he sort of, in spite of getting a brilliant 100, I mean, against probably a very potent attack in the world, which included Julian, Andy Roberts, David Alford. And he was so humble. He was so, I mean, that's what Vishy was all about. But I remember one particular game, 124, I think he scored against Kalicharan's team in 1978 in Chennai. And one sab, I'm sure, must be covering the game in those days. I was just sitting in the spectators gallery and watching that match. And I remember a few years later when I was speaking to him after he had retired, and I asked him about that innings, because that innings was played on a completely very, very dicey wicket. I mean, honestly, those who saw that will bear me out saying how bad the wicket was. I remember Herbert Chang, the left-handed West Indian batsman, was hit on the head by Karsan Gowri, and he fell on the wicket. If I'm not mistaken, he got hit wicket. So a dicey wicket, not anybody except, I think, Kali Charan got 98 and Vishy got 100. And I remember many years later asking him the story. He said, how was it like playing on that track? And, he was so sweet. And he didn't speak about the way he did this or that. all he said was one thing, Kali should know me. There was no deep third man when I came to bat. And that's why I play my shots. It's so simply put, And by the time he realized that there was a deep third man, I was already batting on 70 or 80, So that's the way. And also the kind of, so many incidents that he has told me, never ever put any bowler or anybody down in the sense. It's always been, very different. Like I remember once I had asked him this story about, I just casually asked him this question. I said, way after he retired, I asked him, I said, do you go to England and play, these games which are, sort of charity matches and stuff like that? And he said, yes, I, played a game a couple of years ago in England. And I remember I went to bat and there was this English off spinner. And I think he was referring to Pat Pocock. He was also, old and retired and he was bowling. And Vishy stepped out and hit him over extra cover for a boundary, one bounce boundary into the stands. And so when he was, after he hit the shot, when he was taking that run, I think Pat Pocock said, oh, no, you can't do that. And the next ball, he did it again and said, of course, I can do that. So that was what GR Viswanath is all about. I mean, his artistry was magnificent, but he made it look so simple. And it made it look so easy, like, asking Vijay to sort of hold his hand and look at my wrists. That's what GR Viswanath is all about. It's all about artistry. But I would also, add one more small thing here, is that he knew exactly, what he was doing. And even a lot of people, who've been close to him, his peers, his colleagues, even people like Sunil believe that if there's anybody who would explain batting in a very good way and who would explain to youngsters what real batting is all about, probably GR Viswanath would be right on top of that list.
पर लेकिन उसके बाद में फिर वो सेलेक्टर बन गए, फिर बाद में हमारा रैपो अच्छा हुआ, क्योंकि बहुत अच्छी तबीयत के थे, क्योंकि इतनी ह्यूमिलिटी मैं कभी भी इतना इंसान मैंने देखा। शायद मैं यहाँ पे एक चीज बोल भी सकता हूँ कि मैं उनसे ये ह्यूमिलिटी, क्योंकि मेरे नाना ने मुझे पहले ही बोल दिया था कितना भी बड़े हो जाएंगे तो हम्बल रहना, हर लोग से अच्छा मिलना। तो मेरे ख्याल मेरे नाना के बाद जब ह्यूमिलिटी उनके बाद जब देखा मैं, इतने बड़े प्लेयर इतना आसानी से मिलते थे, हर एक से मिलते थे, किसी को छिड़कते नहीं थे, किसी को गाली नहीं देते थे, आराम से सबको ऑटोग्राफ देते, सबको फोटोग्राफ देते थे। तो वो मेरे ख्याल में वो ह्यूमिलिटी में उनसे भी थोड़ी सीखने की सीखा मैं उनसे, वो मैं कह सकता हूँ। बिकॉज आउटस्टैंडिंग प्लेयर, आउटस्टैंडिंग पर्सनैलिटी, फिर सेलेक्टर थे और मोस्ट सक्सेसफुल सेलेक्टर थे। और कभी भी कुछ भी बैटिंग के बारे में कुछ भी रहे तो बताते थे हर बार आके, हर बार मेरे से तो मेरे को तो बहुत चाहते थे। अभी भी मैं जब भी मिलता हूँ विशी भाई को, मैं इतना बहुत अच्छा चाहते, इतना अच्छी बात करते, अच्छी तरह से बात करते कि मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है। इतने बड़े प्लेयर है, मैं तो कुछ भी नहीं उनके सामने, बिल्कुल 5% भी प्लेयर नहीं उनके सामने। तो बट मुझे इतना रेस्पेक्ट देते तो मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है। और मैं ऐसे बहुत कम प्लेयर्स होते हैं जो इम्पैक्ट मेरे उस पर छोड़ के गए। तो मैं समझता हूँ सुबह ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट विशी भाई का। और हर बार हमें एनकरेज करते, हर बार बोलते थे खेलो, कोई बात नहीं, आउट हो जाता है। तो कभी भी बोलते थे कि हम हमारे जैसे प्लेयर होता, वो अपने में ठीक ले लेते थे। मतलब कि अपने जैसे प्लेयर जो रिश्ते खेलते हैं वो मैंने अप एंड डाउन ज्यादा बाज़ हो जाता है, तो बोलते थे। तो मुझे तो एकदम खुशी होती थी, अरे अपने ऐसा समझते हैं इसी में हमको। तो एक अलग टाइप के सब ऐसे लोग बहुत कम मिलते हैं इंडियन टीम में। और पूरे वर्ल्ड ऑफ क्रिकेट में इतने हम्बल आदमी, इतने ह्यूमिलिटी और इतना इनके सारी से इतना अच्छी तरह से मिलते थे, हमें एक आदमी को ऐसा लगता था कि ये हमारे अपने हैं। तो उससे ज्यादा मेरे पास कोई वर्ड नहीं है। उनसे जितना सीखने का मौका मिला, और बहुत हर बार हमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा फिर स्टेट बैंक ऑफ के मैच होते थे। तो शायद मैं मेहनत गलत तो उनके साथ खेला नहीं खेला मुझे याद नहीं, लेकिन 1-2 मैचेस तो खेला था। बट वो बहुत इतना इनकरेज करते, अच्छा थे, बहुत अच्छी। जब उन्होंने आके 2 कल्लों पे हाथ रख के जब मुझे मार के कहा बोले, तो मैं समझा कि मैं सच में, मुझे ऐसा लगा कि मैंने कोई अच्छा किया। मुझे ऐसा नहीं लगता था कि मैं इतना अच्छा खेलता हूँ मन में, और लेकिन जब उन्होंने बोला तो मुझे इतना अच्छा लगा। और अरे ऋषि भाई जब बोल रहे तो मेरे ख्याल में बिल्कुल 100% नहीं तो कभी ऐसे बात नहीं करेंगे। मुँह पे एक और पीछे एक ऋषि भाई कभी भी नहीं बोलते, एकदम सामने जो भी रहा सामने बोलते थे। और किसी को अगर क्रिटिसाइज भी करना रहा तो वो अपने एकदम बिल्कुल ह्यूमिलिटी से इनके शरीर से ही बोलते थे, भाई ऐसा मत करो, ऐसा करो, ऐसा करो। और वैसे प्लेयर आपको कहाँ मिलता है, वैसे जेंटलमैन क्रिकेटर ऐसा बहुत इंडिया में मैं समझता हूँ कि उनसे ज्यादा कोई इनके शरीर से और इतना अच्छी तरह से मिलते हैं। मैंने अभी आज तक ऐसा प्लेयर नहीं देखा, आज तक ऐसा इंसान को नहीं मिला।
Mohan, I get back to you. Has he impacted you as a person? All of us who are growing up in later years, one generation younger to you, obviously we have the awe, we have the respect, we have the admiration for Gundappa Vishwanath. But as somebody who's more or less his contemporary, maybe 5-7 years this side and that, what is the kind of impact, if at all, he has had on you as a person?
Yeah, I mean, it was so easy to get along with him. That was a great part. And I hardly knew him. I mean, I used to see him play. I saw him play in 1968. Again, in 1969, at the Test match in Calcutta, we went there and watched him bat. And that evening, we were taking, I think, Venkat Raghavan and Ian Redpath back home, because my sister's father-in-law was in Metal Box then. And we had this beautiful house somewhere in South Calcutta, and I invited Venkat and Ian Redpath to come and have dinner with us. And both had agreed. And when I went to the hotel, I saw, when we were just leaving with Venki and Redpath, I saw Vishy walk in. And I asked Venkat, I said, would it be nice, could we invite him? Would you like to invite him to come and join us? So, Venki said, no, you want to ask, you go ask him. So I went across to Vishy, introduced myself formally and said, this is what we're doing, Venki and Ian Redpath, and we are going out for dinner. Would you like to join us? He said, of course, give me 5 minutes. So I went to his room, quickly tidied up and came back, and we went and had dinner, a really enjoyable one, over drinks and dinner at home. It was a really lovely occasion. So it was so easy for a person to approach him. That was his greatness. I mean, he was a demigod. He had just scored 137 on debut, and then he was playing the next Test match here. And I could just walk up to him and say, would you like to come to dinner to my relative's house? And he said, yes. He was that kind of a person. Very, very absolutely friendly, unassuming. It's a great human being. That's what I loved about him. That's what touched me the most. I've known several very famous people, from like Viswanath, Kapil Dev, so many people who I've known personally, who even I've stayed with them in their homes to be able to claim, that I was little more than just a journalist. I was also a kind of friend to them. So among all these people, I would rate Vishy very, very high, because of his gentle, just as warmth as a human being, that he appreciated you as a friend just for what you were. Not because you're a cricket writer or he was a great cricketer, nothing like that. He just knew Mohan. Mohan was a friend, so he had to be good to him. So he was that kind of an informal, great personality.
Vijay, I want you to tell me how Viswanath impacted you.
Yeah, and most important, I think, is I learned to be grounded. Not that I was a great cricket writer or something, but whatever it was, I mean, there were people who hardly who would do anything to sort of enjoy GRV's company. But every time I meet him, I just come back thinking about how many people he would have impacted with his, like Mohan said, very unassuming behavior. He never in a crowd, he's there like one of them. He's there are no airs about him. He just mingles with everyone. There was in Bangalore a sick person, and whose desire was to meet GRV. And I spoke to him. I said, sir, is it possible? You know what he said? He said, no, he will not come to my place. You give me his address. Imagine. And like the one incident I'll share, Mohan, when Shikhar Dhawan got that 100 on debut, the next day, 2 days after that, I was going back with my senior colleague KP Mohan, driving back home in Delhi. I get a call from GRV. He says, can you pass me Shikhar Dhawan's number? I said, why do you want, sir, Shikhar Dhawan's number? He says, no. I say, he batted very well. I say, I have to congratulate him. I said, sir, okay, sir, I'll send you the message. I'll send you the number. You know what I did, Mohan? I quickly called up Shikhar. I said, Mr. Viswanath is asking for your number. He's going to call you. So he said, no, don't do that. That will be a sin. That will be a sin if he has to call me. So he took GRV's number from me. He called up GRV, and obviously I don't know what they spoke. And and before I could reach home, there was a call from GRV. He said, I know you never gave me the number, and I know why. Because I just could not accept that Mr. Viswanath will call up Shikhar Dhawan to congratulate him. So it was nice of Shikhar also, who knew. I mean, I don't know how many times he would have met GRV to to understand that no, he will not be calling me. So that kind of influence he has on this generation of cricketers, and it is their misfortune if they have not watched him in action. We have without all those. I don't need any video recording. It is etched in my memory. The 44 he made at the Firozshah Kotla, and then there was another innings against Australia at the Firozshah Kotla where when he went after Rodney Hogg, he hammered Hogg out of sight, uh, and then like I said, yes, listening. There was another game, the double hundred at Mohan Nagar. So those innings I hear, I will never ever forget those innings. But more importantly, I learned to understand that you as you grow in life, you may achieve, you may not achieve, but it's very important to remain grounded, remain very humble. And I if there's something, I would always want to know from him that why was it that he never thought of doing a book? Like, yes, Mohan said he's guilty. Mohan should have been the best person to give us a book on GRV, but he should have, he should have. And you'll be surprised at the Star Sports studio where he goes to give Kannada commentary, right? Believe me, Rajaraman, he is the man mobbed by cricketers. I have seen it myself. He is mobbed. Mohan, you'll see all these young fellows, they just mob him, and they won't let him go during the breaks, asking him questions about batting, about the cricket of his time, and he enjoys their company. That is the best thing about it. He becomes one of them. So that is what GRV is for me.
Thank you, Vijay. Vincent?
Raja, I think if I go back, why did we follow cricket? We were a small bunch of kids playing several games. We used to play football, we used to play cricket, hockey, other games. I think somewhere along the line, you see a person, it's subconscious. It's not that you're looking to learn something, but you're observing people. And there was this young man, frail man, with very tiny wrists in those days. He developed his wrist by playing shuttle and other games later. But I think he had an influence on a lot of us because it wasn't hockey or football that we followed after that. It was cricket and cricket alone because we found that hero. I think when 1983 World Cup was won, it galvanized an entire country. I think in a small way, without much fanfare, I think he had a great influence on the little minds. Us people who always would go, we used to always go to the ground and look up the itinerary to see which games are scheduled here. Oh, Spartans, no cricket that day. We'll be around watching the game. State Bank of India versus, say, another first division team, it was bigger than even a Ranji game for us. I think observing sports people and the way they conduct, I think it rubbed off on us. Unconsciously, we didn't say that, oh, we want to be like him as a human being. Yes, as a batsman, of course, nobody could imitate the way he played. But I think that was a subconscious influence. And even now, when we meet him, it's a lesson always, the way he interacts with people, the warmth. I mean, we've spoken a lot about it. One incident which stands out for me again is, we asked him, sir, how about your endorsement experiences? He had no remorse. He said, yeah, once upon a time, Duncan Fernley, there was a contract for me. It came through another cricketer who acted as the agent. Okay. And he was a test cricketer, not from India. He said, I was supposed to get 2,000 rupees, never saw 1 paisa by. But there was no remorse, no anger, nothing. He just laughed, saying that I didn't see 1 paisa out of it. That is the only time they came to me for endorsement. But I'm happy they gave me bats to play. You see, this is typically the glass is half full philosophy. It's not about not having got it. He's saying, at least I got the bats, I played with it. There were several lessons. I think with people like Viswanath, you don't go looking for lessons. I think seeing him, I think it grows on.
Thank you, Vinci. That was remarkable. Hemant, what kind of influence and impact Vishwanath has had on you and your life?
I mean, I can speak from two ways. As somebody who was a wannabe batsman, a wannabe cricketer, just watching him was probably the biggest influence because much as we all tried to bat, all of us tried to sort of bat like him. We couldn't, obviously. And that's because of his mastery, brilliant mastery, but technically perfect. I mean, I've never seen anybody bat like him. But as a person, I was very fortunate. I am very fortunate to sort of interact with him. I have been very fortunate, and I've seen the kind of respect that he has for everybody. The way that he conducts himself with people, he's so normal. I mean, all the relatives that part of our family, who know him. I mean, he is so sweet in that sense. Like I can't really explain how, but he just morphs into the family. He's always been one of us in that kind of a thing. To say that, and I remember how happy he was when Daivik was born after many years. He and both Kavi, Kavita, were so happy, and we were so happy for them, and it was amazing. I mean, that was the time I went to Bangalore to see them, and and he sort of, he's such a wonderful family man as well, and that's one big quality for us as the relatives, or rather, very fortunate to be a relative of his, to see, how dedicated he is to his family, to his wife and child, and also to all of us. Whenever we meet him, he's never sort of GR Viswanath, the great cricketer, but he's just a wonderful senior person from our family. So I mean, that to me is probably the biggest impact. And of course, obviously, the respect, as I keep saying, like Vincent has said it, and a lot of others have said it, the respect that he has for seniors, and something which is you only see, and you get inspired to do the same thing as you grow older. When that happens to us, we realize this is the way you need to respect people around you, no matter who you are. And if GR Viswanath can do it, who are we? We are nobodies.
I want quickly Mohan to tell us one innings which he remembers, only one.
Oh, the 97 not out. Recently they asked me to list all the great innings I had seen, the top 10. And I put 97 not out by Viswanath out of 190 at Chepauk as the best test innings I had seen. The circumstances in which it was played, maybe as Hemant was saying, the other wicket was more bouncy when he got 124 against Kalicharan's team later, the same venue. But I think that this 97 out of 190 was the finest innings. And another one I remember was the Melbourne Test match when he got 113, and we came back from behind to win the match and square the series in 1980-81 in Australia. That was an amazing innings on a wearing wicket against Dennis Lillee in his prime, and very good spinners and the whole great Australian team that he played against. And that 113 sort of changed history. We were able to win that Test match and after having been outplayed 89 days in a 90-day tour. On the 90th day, we came back and won that game thanks to Vishy's 100. So, I would, from 97 out of 190, and then this 113. Those are the two ends of his career, really. And I would really fortunate to have seen so many of his hundreds.
My own impact, the way Vishwanath impacted me, was I can tell my grandchildren whenever they come that I watch Vishwanath bat, that I've interacted with him. And then once when I told him that my day is made, after having met him, I said, my day is made. He put his ears like that and said, can you tell me again? I thought he didn't hear me the first time. I said, my day is made. Now that I've met you, my day is made. He said, अच्छा लगता है. बहुत कम सुनने को मिलता है. अच्छा लगता है.
Yes, I would say very, very limited. He's a lovely man. Very soft spoken. When I played the first Ranji Trophy against Karnataka in my first year of my Ranji Trophy season for Tamil Nadu, I didn't even know what kind of a batsman he was. I came in such a situation to play the first class cricket. So I bowled in the first innings. I picked up some of the great players of spin bowling. At the end of the day, the players who played along with me were coming and telling me that Vijay used to be the best player of spin. GRV used to be the master of spin bowling, master of great batsman against spin bowling. So apparently I got those wickets. So I was so happy. And I didn't even realize that it is such an easy thing. Watched him play when he played innings against England in Chepak for Indian team. I was in the stands watching him. He and Gaekwad had a very big, very long innings. So that is it. I didn't even realize that I'll come and bowl against him, and so nice to get his wicket. It is a prize wicket for me. Having heard about him so much, now I think that is a moment to cherish.
And to discuss this man who just played so incredibly. My memory of Vishwanath, Mr. Vishwanath, Sir Vishwanath, is from about 78 onwards when he finished. I didn't see it before. But I remember this innings in somewhere in Australia, I think 81 it was, yeah. Where he was just playing this side of the line and cutting both Lilly and Thompson so easily. He was so beautiful to watch. So beautiful to watch. And he had so much time. And this man, you can see, without fear of failure. And they were not, he wasn't smashing them. He was just easily late cutting them. How the hell did he do that? How did he do that? Gently moving away and cutting. Oh my God, he had so much time. It was so lovely to watch him bat. It was so lovely to watch him bat. And he wasn't playing a quiet inning. The rest of them were playing quietly. This guy was getting runs at a quick rate, but doing it without fear of favor, without temper. It was so beautiful to watch. And for me, that remains with me. Just watching this man play quick inning without anybody knowing that he's playing quickly.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you. Ritesh?
Yes. I just want to say, like I used to play club cricket in a club called Pragati. So one of my club seniors, Lalatendu Mahapatra, he was a right-arm leg spinner, and Gundappa Vishwanath sir was towards the end of his career. So Baby Bhai, we call Lalatendu Mahapatra Baby Bhai. So Baby Bhai had the honor of playing him. First, we were excited because we thought that the Ranji Trophy match between Karnataka and Orissa will be in Orissa. But then we came to know that it will be in Bangalore. Maybe Vincent sir might have seen that match. So Baby Bhai was fortunate enough not only to bowl to Vishwanath sir, but also get him out for 31, just 31. And Brijesh Patel came up with a huge knock. He scored 160 types and had a big partnership with Syed Kirmani towards the end. So Baby Bhai always used to say that 31 runs also like showed Vishwanath's class and all. Just I wanted to share this because it was a childhood memory of mine. So just it came to my mind. And Baby Bhai also said he was a good cricketer. Like he played Ranji Trophy for a few years, played Duleep Trophy also. That was one of the high points of his career, getting Vishwanath out for 31. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemant.
Yeah, I just have a dear friend of mine who's also logged in. He and I.
My name is Gopal Padi. I'm from Singapore. I had the good fortune of meeting Vishy on various occasions. I mean, we know each other very well thanks to Hemant. Then Sunny Gavaskar also introduced us. So one of the occasions with Hemant was saying about in 2008 when we were discussing about various things, I just happened to tell him that I'm from Calcutta originally. So in Eden Gardens, I happened to see one of the best innings I've seen, 137 runs of yours. He interrupted me suddenly. He said, "Hey, don't take away the 2 runs from me. I can't score anymore." You know what I mean? He scored 139 runs. I just happened to say 137. That was one incident I'll never forget in my life. There are various good memories I have with him in Singapore and in Bangalore and other places as well. But this is one incident I will never ever forget. Thank you. amongst the many sessions I had with Vishy, one thing I would certainly like to share. We had a discussion. I think Kings also was there in that. We were discussing who was the better player, Sunil or Vishy. I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth. In fact, I have spoken to Vishy alone and Sunil alone, both separately. So we had a lot of discussion on that. At last, Vishy came before leaving the room. He said, "Listen, no one can be Sunil Gavaskar." So with a complete humility, I might be a little bit more stylish, more flamboyant, but the temperament and the concentration and the uh, master of the game was always Sunil Gavaskar. That's what he ended his conversation with. I would like to share that.
I was born in the year that Vishy made his debut, which is 1969. So obviously, you all have more meat and material to talk about him. However, I've seen Vishy in I think the late 70s series versus Australia in India, and then obviously highlights of the Melbourne 100 that we have spoken of, and obviously I think unfortunately the last series in Pakistan, which I really don't want to talk about in the 80s. But one question that keeps sort of coming to my mind is I think Vishy had one ability which is not very often seen in many batsmen, which is his inborn ability to pick up gaps. Is that correct with Vishy, and is that a correct reading of his capabilities? Because again, that's a lot to do with instinct. I assume not every player who is quite good in technique or the capability to pace bowlers has the ability to find gaps right away. Vishy did have that. So those are my initial memories from what I have seen him. Very little of what I've seen him live, and obviously subsequently videos on YouTube, whatever are available. So what is it? Is it inborn, obviously, or did Vishy work on it in terms of his ability to pick up gaps while hitting strokes? I mean, anybody could answer that.
Your conversation with Vishwanath, what did he say about being able to find the gaps in the cricket?
That was, see, I'll tell you what. There was a Wills Trophy match, Rajaraman, before I became a journalist at the Firozshah Kotla, and the outfield was actually heavy, and we were hardly getting to see any boundaries. And then somebody said, "Ye kya one day match hai? Ye kya hai bakwas? You hardly get to see boundaries." Those days there was no IPL, so we didn't know many sixes being hit in a match. And then GRB came to bat. And then suddenly boundaries happened from nowhere, the ball was traveling to the fence. And then another player, I would always sit with the club cricketers. So someone said, "Ye ab kaisa boundary mein aa gaya bhai?" I mean, he's short in stature, and see how the ball is flying to the boundary. So then another guy so wisely commented, like just now I was here listening to Karthik. He says, "Look, he's not hitting with power, he's hitting between the fielders. He's able to pick those gaps, which it is always about picking gaps." So I think GRB was a master in picking gaps. You could never set a field to him. If he was in form, he will beat you even with 22 people on the field. So that innings, I remember, I came back wondering, oh, batting is also about hitting, making runs by placing the ball between the fielders, So that was one. And like I said, he made batting look so easy. Whether he was playing the fast bowlers, we have seen him. Those I remember one picture, Rajaram, in the Sports Week, I think, where he's playing a square cut of one of the West Indian fast bowlers in that Port of Spain innings, and feet in air. वो तो जमीन में नहीं है, दोनों पैर हवा में है, and he's playing the square cut. So he was such a delight, and I don't think you can teach somebody to bat like Vishwanath. Impossible. You will have to be born a Gundappa Vishwanath.
No. That match was something that we didn't initially thought of chasing, to be very frank. Me and Sunil, we opened and we had a good partnership, good beginning. And I got out in a silly way, trying to late cut Jumadin. I was caught in the slip by Alvin Kalisharan. And that's where otherwise we were going on great guns. But thereafter, as the time went, as the game progressed, and the way runs kept coming, thanks to Sunil, Vishi, and Jimmy, Vijay, all of them kept the scoreboard moving all the time. And suddenly we realized that, well, we can achieve it. And that was it. But Vichy was outstanding, outstanding. Meaning, flicking the fast bowlers. You talk about Mikey, Andy, all these guys. He was up in the air, jumping up in the air and flicking the ball, short balls. And mind you, Clive had kept deep fine leg, deep square leg, mid wicket, and he was piercing through them with power. And literally, I'm telling you, he was literally jumping, 2 feet above the ground to flick those deliveries, and they were quick. Let's face it, they were not one of those fast medium pacers. They were fast bowlers, and what I saw his inning was amazing, amazing. His wrist work, his footwork is something out of this blue. Meaning, whatever I've seen a lot of cricketers since then, but Vichy was Vichy, and I personally feel, Vichy is different. He is different than all the other batsmen I've seen. I've seen Sunil bat. Sunil was a great player, of course, wicket. Vichy was a greatest player on a bad wicket. That's a big difference. On a bad track, uneven bounce, turning track, and you see him one of the balls and the bowlers was amazing, out of this world. I haven't seen anybody doing that. On a good field, we've seen a lot of people, a lot of batsmen doing that. But on a bad track, on a damp track, on a grassy track, on a turning track, Vichy was the king. I can tell you that. Nobody else could bat like him.
Yeah, yes, we were very, very privileged, Rajaram, extremely privileged to have watched him, to have interacted with him, learned from him. And yeah, that was one innings. And then you were saying how he could do it, because he also, they used to say those days, I don't know how true, that he had 2 strokes for a ball. He could sort of make a forward movement and then suddenly go back on the back foot and play a square cut, or maybe an off drive or a cover drive. Or if he also had, he could from wanting to play a cover drive, he may have shifted to play a square cut and ultimately finished with a late cut. So I have known wicket keepers who have marveled, that to have they said it was very difficult to understand what shot he was going to play. And the bowlers have said it was very, very difficult to bowl to him because he had all the shots. And he was fearless, yes, but he was not senseless. Like Mohan told that he had an impeccable defense. So if you have good defense, you can last on any kind of pitch. So that's what was his quality. And maybe we may not have watched him many of his innings, but what a privilege, Rajaram, to have spoken to him. Just spoken to him. And before you can pass on this thing to the next speaker, I must tell you one incident with Rakesh Rao wanted me to share with you. This was at Firisha Kotla, 80-81 season. He got a 100 against Delhi. And remember, those days spectators would go with garlands, They knew that some will get 100. So garland leke Kotla mein pahunch gaye. And yes, GRV got 100. So many of them jumped in. Now our man Rakesh Rao was thinking, kudu ki nahi kudu? Should I jump or not? Should I jump or not? Ultimately, he saw many people went in and they're coming out. So he thought, mera chance gaya. So he jumped. He scaled the fence, ran onto the pitch, and he touched Gundappa's shoulder and ran on to the other side of the ground because there must be policemen waiting on this side for Rakesh Rao to return. So that was one incident which we shared with the GRV when we met him in Mumbai. And obviously he wouldn't have remembered, but he was so very humble, and he just patted Rakesh Rao. And somebody clicked our picture, Rajaram. I don't have it here ready with me, saying that it was the first time they saw 2 journalists, Vijay Lokapally and Rakesh Rao, sitting there as fans of Gundappa Viswanath. So nobody would have thought these 2 are journalists. The way we were sitting I was sitting at his feet, and somebody clicked a picture. you wouldn't believe that there were two journalists speaking to him. Anyone would think there were two fans who have had an opportunity to meet a hero. And that the whole day, it was such a revelation, to discover in what awe the today's cricketers hold him. Not this generation. This generation is in its own world, but the previous one, where they wanted to hear stories from me. So I thought, yeah, I have not come here for that. Maybe some other day. But today I have to listen to stories from Gunda Paksha.
Thank you, Vijay. Hemant, I'm going to come to you, but I have a question to ask you. You've got something to say, but I've also got a question to ask you. The 70s were a time where you had Sunil Gavaskar and you had Gunda Paksha. For a large part of the 70s, I think once Wadekar faded away, you did not have too many batsmen who could stay there and fight it out. So the Indian batting revolved around these two giants called Sunil Gavaskar and Gunda Viswanath. I know they took pride in each other. I know they were both selfless and they prodded each other on. But tell me, how did Viswanath handle pressure of having to bat? Maybe once Sunil Gavaskar got out, he knows the batting ends with him and he took on that pressure. So did you ever have any conversation with Gunda Viswanath around the ability to soak in the situation and take the pressure off?
Okay, no, never. I mean, never really, because I think, as you rightly said, that both complemented each other and both had a tremendous amount of respect for one another's cricket. And as I said, as you know, they started their journey almost around the same time. 69, of course, Vishy made his debut, but 71 tour when Sunil finally, when he came into the Indian team, they were the, what shall I say, the younger lot. And I still remember that one photograph which was taken during the rest of India versus Bombay game at Pune, if I'm not mistaken. And you have under a tree, you have these three short people standing. There was Vishy, there was Sunil, and there was the late Ramnath Parkar, who was also one of those mercurial batsmen whom all of us sort of remember, and for his fielding, etc. But I think they just complemented each other. And I mean, one of my biggest as a cricketer, as a fan, my not regret, but one thing I really miss is not to watch both of them bat together as many times as I would have liked to. I mean, they did have a lot of innings together, but to see them both bat together, it was completely, what shall I say, like, I mean, two masters playing cricket in their own way. One played one way, the other played the other way. It would have been a brilliant jugalbandi of two gharanas of cricket together, and that, unfortunately, if you look at the records, I mean, I don't think that Sunil and Vishy have had that many big partnerships there. I know there are, he played, if I remember correctly, I think the game where Sunil got a double 100 against Kalicharan's team in Bombay, and Vishy got a 50 odd, and there were many other games. I think one game, against Australia and New Zealand, they batted together and got 100 plus partnerships. So the regret in a way is that didn't watch too many of that. I would have wanted more and more and more. वो क्या बोलते हैं, जैसे once more kind of a feeling. So never really discussed this thing with them. It was obvious that both loved each other's cricket and loved each other's company, if I may put it that way.
I'm a huge fan of Viswanath. I was just thinking of a hypothetical situation whereby if God was kind enough, Sunil Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar and GR Viswanath batted at the same time. Gavaskar, if God gave me an inclination that Gavaskar is to bat at his very best at Wankhede, Sachin at Brabourne and Viswanath at DY Patil, I will walk down to DY Patil to watch GR Viswanath bat. And I would go further and say that such was his grace, feline grace, that he never hit the ball, but he requested the ball to go away from him.
Thank you very much for that very interesting perspective. Azhar told me that he spent a rupee to watch Viswanath. The first time he watched him was in Fateh Maidan in Hyderabad, where Viswanath got 100 against the West Indians for South Zone. He spent a rupee there. I think all of us who have assembled here today would pay to watch Viswanath. There are not too many batsmen who we will all pay to watch. Viswanath belongs there. Vincent, have you ever had the chance to discuss with him the ability to soak in the pressure? Viswanath as the middle order bulwark of the Indian team. Have you ever had conversations around that? Or have you heard other cricketers like Vijay Patel maybe speak about
Yes, Raja. Once when we were talking about, I think it was in the very first meeting I had along with Suresh Kumar. He said, look, there is so much people talk, but when you're playing there is a ball and you react to it. That's what he said. You understand the situation, so therefore you will cut out a few risky shots. If the percentage of risk is high in a particular shot, I would not play that. Interestingly, in one interview, I mean, a lot of people talk about Viswanath walking. In one interview, he said, look, it came to me instinctively. It is never that I wanted to go. I always went back to the pavilion because I knew I was out. But after that, I would regret it, saying that I've let my team down. I should have waited for the umpire to declare me out.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I'm going to take leave of all of you. You have been marvelous. Many of you have been patient. You've been sitting through just listening to Mohan, Vijay, Hemant and Vincent speak about Gundappa Vishwanath. Kavita ji, I want to say a special thanks to you. You have been marvelous. Every time we have logged out and walked in, you have been back. I'm sure the master will be happy to hear some of the good things that we have shared here. We will probably need many more sessions like this before we can actually deconstruct the image that we've got of Gundappa Vishwanath in our mind. I don't think any of us can ever translate what is in our minds into words and bring it forward for people to understand the value, the legacy that Vishwanath has brought into Indian cricket. There can never be another Gundappa Vishwanath. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. But you all have been brilliant. I think this is the power of Gundappa Vishwanath. This is the magic of the man that makes us come back for more and more. Thank you very much.